To you live from South Africa.
A typical day of Ramadan in Morocco begins with a nafa, that is the town crier blowing the horn to wake up families for the pre-dawn meal. After the iftar, the sounding of a cannon marks the start of a day-long fast, and after sunset, Zawaka on air raid siren, siren alerts Muslims that they may now eat and drink. Moroccans head out to nearby mosques for the Taraweeh and Tahajjud prayers. During this holy month, extra congregational prayers are also held for people to read the Quran and devote themselves to Allah. So there is a lot to talk about in terms of what our guest is going to talk about, and she terms as Magical Morocco. And this is the Magical Morocco tour that we are going with. And the tour leader is, of course, Ayesha Kajee from Abie Dawjee Tours. Assalamu alaikum, Ayesha.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Indeed, Najma, it is the Magical Morocco tour, and I'm so happy to be able to share it with your audience.
Fantastic. Ramadan Kareem to you and your entire team at Abie Dawjee Tours.
And the same to you as well. Ramadan Mubarak. May Allah Ta'ala make this a month of glory, of the glorious Quran, and a month of barakah for us all and for all your audience out there, your listeners and viewers, inshallah.
Right. So now, Morocco is a place where, I've featured it once before, and we've had the discussion on the culture and the architecture and the food, and I think for Ramadan, it's just drawn us closer in terms of it being a Muslim country. And in my introduction, I mentioned that the sirens and the blowing of the horn. It must be just amazing during the month of Ramadan to be in Morocco.
It is amazing during the month of Ramadan. I haven't been there in Ramadan, but I have been there at a time when, most Muslims are fasting, etc., during Shaban. And it is truly, truly amazing. It's a magnificent country generally, but I think it really comes into its own when there is a Muslim festival or a Muslim, shall we say, holy high day, as the Jews call them. But, when there's something of significance to Islam happening, the entire society is so galvanized and energized by it that it's really, really beautiful. As I said, it's a magnificent country generally. It's a country of such different architecture, of such a different culture. It's a melding and a meshing of Arab and African. So you feel you're still in Africa and you still feel very African, but you also have that hobby of the Arabic language everywhere, the language of the Quran, and you have the culture that comes from the Middle East, but has become a uniquely Moroccan thing. Right. So it's really a wonderful experience. And of course, the food. I could go on about the food for your entire show, Najma. You might have to stop me.
Well, let's start there then, because I was going to ask you about the influence. What influence does the architecture have, and the historical influence there? But if you'd like to start with the food, then let's go ahead there. Everyone's fasting, Ayesha.
I love the architecture as well. So our tour goes to Casablanca, Fez, and Morocco. And originally, those were the three cities that we really concentrated on. But now that we have a longer Morocco trip, we have a trip that has 10 nights in Morocco. So we actually go to the desert on the edge of the Sahara as well. And that in itself is another magical thing, because you're traveling very far out. It's an entire day to get there, and you get there around Asr time. And then you get on these camels, Najma, and you go on camelback into the sunset. That's the only way I can put it. And, when you arrive there, so you're traveling in this caravan of camels into red dunes, literally red sand. And you arrive there at the top of the dunes, and you sit there, and suddenly, everybody's excited, they're laughing and they're talking. And then suddenly there's a kind of silence falls over the group. And you watch the sun sink into the sea of red sand. It's literally endless, vast, like being on the ocean, but it's an ocean of sand. And then as it just finally sinks in, the sky changes, the colors of the sky changes. And then you make Maghrib, you get up and suddenly there's a drop in temperature. It becomes very cold from being very hot. And you make Maghrib there on the Sahara Desert. And I have to describe that, Najma, as a mind shift. Really,
Uh-huh.
you return from that short interlude, changed in some intrinsic way, changed because, subhanallah, you've witnessed one of the glories of Allah's creation.
True,
And
true.
also changed because you've had this, somehow there's a moment of self-reflection in that shift between day and night on the edge of this, as I say, seemingly unending ocean of sand. There's a moment of really inward reflection, of connection with your creator. It is honestly one of the most incredible things I've experienced in my life.
I can just imagine. I think also what adds to it is that we are praying the Maghrib Salah at that time. So there
Yes,
is this presence anyway, spiritual presence that one feels. And then you just connect with the universe, as it were, and Allah's creation in all its glory, because you've got land and sky that you're just exposed to. I can just imagine. So yeah, and what next?
well, yeah, it's, as I said, for me, that was really, it was a moment of very keen self-reflection and
Surreal.
critical self-analysis, and also this knowledge comes into you. We know it from the Quran, but it comes into you, you internalize it, that you are part of an immense creation, and that all human beings come from one soul ultimately. And it is just, it is mind-blowing. Anyway, that's the desert. That is a very, very special part of this tour. But of
Right.
course, the cities themselves are also very special. So we start off generally in Casablanca, often known as the White City. And it is a city on the edge of the sea, on the edge of the Mediterranean. It's got very, very European influences, in addition to its African and Arab influences. So it's got really beautiful examples of um, Nouveau architecture, some of the type of architecture you see in a city like Durban, for example, in South Africa. But many, many beautiful, very well maintained examples of that style of architecture, and many of them in white. Like the buildings are white, they're painted white, which is why it's called the White City. And of course, the most special thing for me in this city is the architecture of the Hassan II Masjid. Now, this is not an old masjid, Najma. It is a recently built masjid in the last few decades. However, I think it opened in 1996. The special thing about this masjid is that it is built over the sea. So the
Oh
sea
my.
flows underneath it.
Uh-huh.
So that is special in itself.
I'm already
Secondly,
intrigued. Yes.
secondly, the former king, the father of the current king, brought in the best craftsmen in the Middle East and indeed in the world to build this mosque and do the interior decor. So the woodwork is of the finest quality. The tile work is of the finest quality. The stucco work is of the finest quality. The chandeliers, the carpets, the murals. It's got examples of so many types of craftsmanship, both Moroccan and non-Moroccan, that it is
Wow.
utterly and insanely beautiful. You really, it's a feast for the eyes. We generally take our travelers there to make at least one salah. I usually aim for Maghrib on the day that we arrive, if it is possible, or if we are there on a Jummah, for Jummah there.
Lovely.
So it just depends on the timing. But it is truly incredible. I sent your producer a picture of the second night of Taraweeh there this year. There were 850,000 people making
Yes.
Taraweeh in this masjid.
Hmm.
It
Yes,
is truly an incredible picture.
right. I've seen that, and I was about to ask you whether it's at that mosque because I've seen that those pictures. It's just amazing, incredible. And where did all those 800,000, 850,000 people come from? Imagine gathering at that time. It's because we take for granted those numbers in
Yes,
places like Makkah and Medina, and
and Medina, yes,
of course Al-Aqsa, and other places in India, maybe the Jame Mosque in India. And
yes,
we know of the one in Russia as well. You just see this, well, it's sea of people worshipping during the month
yes.
of Ramadan. This really took me aback because it's so beautiful. The whole setting is so
It's
beautiful. Just and to see the
so
worshippers is, of
beautiful. And that
course, an
entire
added.
courtyard is full.
Right, right, exactly. So this must
And
be a
in this
very.
masjid, the roofs also come, they actually come away. So on very hot nights or very hot days, but generally hot nights, they retract the roofs so that the air comes in and you can see the stars.
Oh my
So
word!
I can only imagine how beautiful Taraweeh Salah must be there. But inshallah, one day I'm going to be spending Ramadan in Morocco because it
Inshallah, I
is
think.
truly magnificent. And
Yeah, I
even
think
as I said, on the times when I have been there, when Muslims are fasting, they have this, this call to this wake up time for Sehri in the little towns and villages. Each town or village has a town crier, Najma, and they actually
uh,
come around beating drums or blowing a horn to wake people up for Sehri, which is again something you really have to experience to imagine it. And in the
right.
cities, at the time of iftar, an a type of air raid siren gets blasted across the city, telling people that it's time. There is, of course, the beautiful adhan as well, but there's a
Mm,
siren just before the azan to say that it's Maghrib time.
mm, mm. So, what of the food? Because iftar has a different diet altogether. I'm assuming. Uh, what can you tell
Well,
us about? Yeah.
yes and
What what's
no.
what
So
what's yeah? Sorry. What's traditional for Moroccans in Ramadan for iftar?
Well, Moroccan food varies from region to region, right? But the staple of Moroccan food, as you may know, and I see it's up on the screen at the moment, is couscous.
Hmm.
Okay, so it is a type of special dish called zimha. Okay, and it is everywhere in Ramadan. It's everywhere when Moroccans fast. It's a special kind of sweet. It is made from a mixture of toasted sesame seeds, toasted wheat, bulgur wheat usually, or flour, and then a type of ghee, but it's not ghee as we know it.
Hmm.
And of course, then sugar or molasses or honey, and lots of fried almonds, and in some places, also what they call amlu.
Hmm.
Amlu is a mixture of honey, um, almonds, and the seed of the argan tree and argan oil. So toasted argan seeds and argan oil. And it's a very intricate process to get to those seeds and that oil, because while argan oil, as you probably know, is a huge product of Morocco and very much used throughout the world in beauty products, very good for the skin and the hair, alhamdulillah. But edible argan oil goes through a different kind of process to make it edible and to make the seeds edible. And so amlu is this incredibly nutritious mixture of argan oil, honey, um, and almonds, and the argan seeds sometimes, and sometimes sesame as well. Sesame is everywhere in Morocco. And they eat this, some people eat it at both iftar and at suhoor. But it is also very, very popular at suhoor for anything to do with the dates, etc. And talking about dates, on our trip into the desert, this last trip that we went to Morocco, we stopped in a little town where the next day we were taken to the date market. And I swear, I bought
Hmm.
dates there mainly because I wanted to support the local industry. But I wish I had bought more because they were magnificent, they were fresh. They were different from the dates you get in Mecca and Medina, but very similar to the dates that we see coming from Namibia, for example, the so called medjool dates, that type of date.
Yes.
And they were
Right.
really,
Right.
really lovely. I shared them with family and friends, and everybody was asking for more.
Right. Right. In terms of the culture and people, a country obviously is just more loved because of its people. What would you say
Yes.
about the Moroccans?
The Moroccan people are a very unique mixture of African and Arab and European. And I think they take pride in all three of those heritages because they fought so strongly against the colonial rule of France. They still, though they still, many of them speak French, they have an ambivalent relationship towards France. But they've got a very strong love for both their African heritage and their Arab heritage. And that's reflected pretty much in their daily lives. They are the kind of people who are very, very welcoming of visitors to the country. And they are also a nation that are fiercely nationalistic in the sense that they feel
Okay.
very Moroccan, and they will correct you if you stereotype them with the rest of North Africa or the Middle East, because they feel very,
Okay.
very strongly Moroccan in identity. They have a strong affinity with their king, so they are a constitutional monarchy, and they're very warm, loving, welcoming people. You won't leave a home in Morocco if you go to visit one without at least having a cup of Moroccan mint tea prepared specially for you. And usually with that mint tea, whatever eats they have, no matter how pushed those people might be in financial and economic terms, they will serve their visitors the best of the best, even if it is just flatbread, freshly made flatbread with honey and olive oil, which is delicious in itself.
Aha, that's an Islamic tradition, you know,
Absolutely. And the
of
Moroccan mint tea is, again, something that's very unique to the country and something they take great pride in preparing freshly and aerating so that, they lift the teapot several times when they are mixing up the tea, etc. And it is really, really beautiful.
uh-huh. But can you tell us about the currency? Is it an economical destination for South Africans?
It is a very affordable destination for South Africans. Currently, the exchange rate is about 1 to 1, so it is somewhere that you can really get value for money in terms of your South African rand, which so often leaves us unable to enjoy a tourist destination even once we have gotten there. So in Morocco, food is plentiful and cheap. 99% of the meat coming into Morocco is halal. And I say 99% because it is only in some of the really high-end hotels that pork is served. But otherwise, all the meat in Morocco is halal. So you don't have issues with whether you can eat the meat or not. There are a few places that will cater to tourists and will serve pork, as I said, and a few places that will serve alcohol. But by and large, you have the peace of mind of being able to eat pretty much anywhere in Morocco, even at the big franchises, which I don't recommend. But of course, sometimes our children want the McDonald's and the Pizza Huts, etc. I would really
Right.
recommend trying the regional specialties in each place. So of course, couscous in each place in Morocco is different. Then you get the traditional Mediterranean mezze platters, and the Moroccan ones have their own slant. We were talking about iftar and suhoor. In Ramadan, there is a very special pastry made that is filled with dates and nuts. It's a very, very traditional throughout the North African area and throughout Morocco as well. And again, it has regional variation. So sometimes it'll be served with sesame seeds. Sometimes it will have both pistachios and almonds. Sometimes almonds and peanuts. Sometimes almonds and coconut. And always, of course, the wonderful dates. The pastries by themselves are something really to experience in Morocco. You've got cookies made from dough that's folded into various shapes and then deep fried. Also very, very much something that they serve in Ramadan after iftar, and again after Tarawih with the Moroccan mint tea.
Mhm.
You've got pastilla, which is a specialty of the city of Fez, which is made of phyllo pastry and poultry. But in there also, there's almonds and occasionally raisins or dates and lots of saffron. So the moment you cut into the pie, I can only call it that, the pastilla, you get this wafting up into your nose of the almonds and the saffron scent. And different places make it differently, but for me, traditionally, the best place to eat pastilla is in Fez. And then, of course, there's orange blossom everywhere. So the scent of orange blossom in the food, in the perfumes, on people as they pass you by, in the medicinal
Wow.
shops, in the Aga and all places. It is very redolent of Morocco as well. So it's a city, it's a country and cities of not just architectural delights, but also delights for your taste buds and your olfactory senses as well.
Aha. You have a beautiful way of
And then, of
describing it.
course, one of my favorite cities.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, please go ahead.
No, go ahead. You were saying you're one of your favorite cities.
One of my favorite cities anywhere on the planet, and I am pretty well traveled, is Marrakesh. Marrakesh is known as the Pink City.
Yeah.
And it is just magnificent. It is a city that is different during the day and different at night. It is, of course, the home of the Qutubiyya Masjid, the tower and minaret of which are replicated in the Giralda Tower in Spain, in Sevilla. And you know, European architects talk about the tower and the minaret in Sevilla, but really it is a replica of the Qutubiyya one in Marrakesh, and they don't often mention that, of course. It is a city of the Madrasa bin Yusuf, which is, it is reminiscent in some ways, the tiling, the architecture, etc., of the wonderful Alhambra in Granada. But of course, it is still a madrasa and masjid, unlike the Alhambra, which sadly passed into the hands of the Christians. So it has got so many little architectural gems. It has got the most magnificent gardens. It has got an amazing hotel, which unfortunately we can't afford to stay at, but we can at least visit the Mamounia Hotel where Winston Churchill used to stay. And the gardens of the Mamounia are an experience in themselves.
I can imagine.
And then, of course, there's a tiny little secret garden hidden in the new part of Morocco, in the Nouvelle City, it's the garden of Yves Saint Laurent. It's the Majorelle garden with this magnificent blue color, almost the color of the Salam Media screen behind you, Najma, but slightly more cobalt than that. And it's featured throughout this little garden. It's a tiny little garden, but it's one of my happy places.
Oh, I can see it, that Morocco is very close to your heart. We were talking very quickly about the affordability, and sometimes these tour packages seem really unaffordable, though. And you've said that the being a tourist in the country is actually not difficult to afford. However, tour packages can be quite steep to Morocco specifically.
Mm-hmm. They can be, and this one may seem steep, but bear in mind it includes everything: all your intercity travel, all your travel into the desert, all your breakfast, and as I said, food there is very cheap, so to buy your dinners is not a problem in the most part, and all your touring. And of course, in the touring, the one thing I must not forget to mention is the madrasa, the Khairouan Masjid and Madrasa in Fez. It is the oldest continuously operating university in the world, and it was begun by a woman, Fatima Al-Fikri. So it is really something to see. And it is somewhere to make Jum'ah if you're fortunate enough to do that, but at least to make one salah there.
Yeah, I'm very, very glad you mentioned that, because I know that stood out for me as one of the bucket list places that I would really love to visit, inshallah, whenever I do go to Morocco. Aisha, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. Love your enthusiasm. It must be amazing to go on a trip with you.
It's been a pleasure sharing my passion for Morocco. Thank you.
It's good. So and thank you very much to Abie Dawjee Tours for allowing you to share this with us. Thank you, Ayesha Kajee. She is the tour leader at Abie Dawjee Tours. Wonderful. It's been fantastic talking to you. We look forward to more programs with you on this segment on Mid Morning Talk with myself. Jazakallah khair,
Inshallah.
Aisha.
Jazakallah for having me on and for letting me share my enthusiasm for this really magnificent, magical Morocco. It really is an amazing experience and a place that most Muslims should put on their bucket list, inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. That's it. We wrap up for this week's edition of the Mid Morning Talk on a Monday. Remember to join me tomorrow in our special broadcast of our Ramadan schedule. Our lineup, as you know, is the psychology of Ramadan. The second segment, we continue with the story of Rumi, his history and his teachings. And then, of course, the last segment, which is the preservation of the Holy Quran. We will be talking to our very special guests that we have on for the series for the rest of Ramadan on a Tuesday. I'm again looking forward to those discussions with our guests, Sayyid Jamaluddin Amiri from Sweden, from the ISIP directorship. And then it's, of course, Abu Bakr Karolia for the Rumi program, and then Kari Bashir Patel for our segment on the preservation of the Holy Quran. Jazakallah khair for being with me on this Monday. We started a bit on edge, but alhamdulillah, we've finished the program on a very good note. So enjoy the rest of your day. Stay with Salam Media and remember us in your duas. Assalamu alaikum.